Nothing says Christmas at my house quite like pecan pie. And since it's the holidays, can we normalize baking in our PJs? Yes, please. Pecan pie is hands down a favorite dessert of the season, and it's actually my dad's favorite dessert of all time. And although I know that you're not supposed to mess with a good thing, sometimes I can't help myself. This cinnamon white chocolate Texas pecan pie is one of those times, and I think it is an amazing variation to the classic. We're starting off by making our homemade pie shell. This is super easy. I just added some all-purpose flour to a large bowl. Then I cut up an entire stick of butter. Usually I grate the butter. Today I didn't feel like getting the grater out. No big deal. I'm just going to use my hands to do all the work. I'm also going to add some vinegar and then 1 egg and some ice cold water to the mix. And then of course, use my hands to get it all incorporated. Once it completely comes together, I'm just going to put it in some plastic wrap, flatten it into a disc so that it's easier to roll out, and let it chill for about 20 minutes. Now, where I live, it's not hard to find the best pecan pie recipe. Just ask around. Everyone has one. This decadent dessert is as common in the South as biscuits and gravy. And it has a very rich history among the southern states because we have tons of pecan trees. I grew up with a lot of pecan trees in my yard and in my uncle's yard, and we would always pick and shell pecans as a family. As a matter of fact, the dessert has been associated with Texas as early as 1897, and it is the state dessert. How about that? If you've never had pecan pie, I have to inform you that you're truly missing out. It's a flaky pie shell filled with a gooey filling of brown sugar, pecans, and syrup. And if you add a dollop of vanilla ice cream or whipped cream to the top, that really sends it over the edge. But this variation of pecan pie is truly unique. I decided to add white chocolate chips for even more richness and cinnamon for a hint of warmth, because cinnamon goes so well in holiday desserts anyway, and it's also my favorite spice. I think these two new elements complement the pecans well, and they add an interesting background flavor to an already delicious dessert. Now, you're going to see in this video how easy pecan pie is to make, but it does have a very expensive look and flavor, especially if you use halved pecans on top and create a beautiful design. I have seen some of the most gorgeous pecan pies that are layered on top with their halved pecans in an array of different ways to make beautiful holiday designs. But for me, I prefer chopped pecans for my pecan filling because they make the pecan pie texture more fudgy and chewier than crunchier bites. But this element is completely up to you. And you can buy your pecans already chopped, or in my case, I didn't. I made the mistake of buying them in halves, so I just chopped them on my own. So you'll see in a minute, my pecans are a rough chop. There might be some slightly larger pieces in the mix, but that's totally okay. Now, making the filling up until this point, we've added our brown sugar, our Caro syrup, and our eggs, our cinnamon, salt, and vanilla. And now I'm going to slowly whisk in the melted butter. I'm doing this slowly because my melted butter was still warm and I do not want scrambled eggs. But if you have the time, you can let your melted butter cool on the counter and you won't have to be as careful with it while adding. Just going to whisk this together really well and then set it to the side while I roll out my pie crust. If you remember from earlier, after we made the dough and wrapped it in plastic wrap, we placed it in the fridge to chill for about 20 minutes. I'm just going to put it on a floured surface, put some flour on top of my dough and my rolling pin, and then just roll it out to the size of my pie plate. And I actually like to use a 10-inch. Some people use 8 or 9-inch, but all of my pie plates are 10 inches. After I have rolled my pie crust out completely, I'm going to show you a trick so that it doesn't tear. I'm going to take my rolling pin to the edge and roll my pie crust over it, and then grab my pie plate and then simply unroll the crust on top of the pie plate. It's the perfect way to transfer that crust to your pie plate without destroying it because it should be very tender. Once I pushed the crust down and made sure that it was on the bottom of the pie plate, then I just take a knife and I'm going to trim off all of the excess. Now, depending on what type of design you want to make on the edge of your crust will determine how much you want to trim off, but today, I really wanted to go old school and traditional and just use a fork to crimp the edges. So I trimmed off all of the excess dough right up to the edge of the pie plate itself. And honestly, I think the reason I wanted to use the fork to crimp the edges today is because, again, pecan pie is super nostalgic. I didn't grow up with people who tried to make food gorgeous or take photos of it. Just everybody in my family are excellent cooks and excellent bakers. But the presentation wasn't on the top of the list, and so when they made a pie crust, it was just a simple crimp with a fork. So I'm trying to keep it very traditional and close to home there. Next, we're just going to pour in our pecan pieces into the unbaked crust to set on the bottom, and then I'm going to top that layer with my white chocolate chips. Then we're going to pour our pie filling on top and make sure that everything is completely covered. And to get this filling to kind of seep down in between the cracks of the white chocolate and the pecan pieces, I'm just going to give it a good little shake, just like this. You can see me shaking it, and that's the purpose. I didn't really want to stir anything. And then I'm going to do my egg wash. So I took one egg in a little bitty glass bowl. You can add a splash of water to it and just take a pastry brush, and we're going to brush around the entire edge of the pie. Now, the egg wash does a couple of different things. So you might be wondering, like, do I have to do this? Can I skip it? Yes, you can totally skip it, but I don't like to skip egg wash because it gives our crust a nice, beautiful brown color, and it also makes it glossy, meaning it gives it a little bit of shine. But I have also found that it gives the pie crust like a crispier texture to me. Now, if you're worried about your pie crust, the edges of it burning or anything like that, you can put a pie shield on it. You can also cover it with some foil. But I found today that when I baked my pie, it got dark, but it was like this deep, beautiful golden brown color. It wasn't burnt at all, and I was very happy with it. Then I just put my pecan pie in a 350-degree oven for exactly 45 minutes. And I pulled it out, and this is what we have. Beautiful, delicious pecan pie. As always, the complete recipe can be found on my blog, including the nutritional information. That link is in my bio. You have to make it, guys. You have to.